The United States is often thought of as a single, uniform country. Yet beyond the continental mainland exist territories that function in ways most Americans don't even realize. Scattered across the oceans, from the Caribbean to the Pacific, these hidden U.S. territories offer a form of freedom that is difficult to find anywhere else. They are places where life moves at a different pace, where local culture and autonomy shape daily existence, and where the pressures of modern American society, constant surveillance, bureaucratic oversight, and social competition fade into the background. Living in these territories isn't about escaping responsibility. It's about engaging with a version of America that feels distant, human, and untethered from the relentless rhythm of the mainland. Puerto Rico, perhaps the most well-known of these territories, illustrates the paradox of being both American and separate. It is fully under U.S. sovereignty, yet its culture, language, and social structures create an identity that feels distinct from the mainland. Life in Puerto Rico is communal by necessity. Hurricanes, infrastructural gaps, and natural disasters have historically forced residents to rely on each other rather than government systems. That reliance fosters resilience and an independence that outsiders often mistake for disorder. On the island, informal economies thrive. Neighbors help neighbors without formal contracts, and personal relationships often hold more sway than institutional rules. Here, freedom is practical, embedded in the daily act of survival and the autonomy that comes with managing one's own affairs. Guam offers a different perspective on territorial life. Located in the Western Pacific, Guam is closer to Asia than the continental United States, and its distance from Washington, D.C. creates a unique environment. Although the U.S. military maintains a significant presence, the local civilian culture remains rooted in Chamorro traditions. Family structures, communal land ownership, and oral histories shape life far more than bureaucratic regulations. People are known by reputation, not by paperwork. Freedom in Guam is tied to these social networks, to being part of a community where identity and responsibility are inherited rather than imposed. Bureaucracy exists, but it does not dominate daily life. This creates a society where individuals can live semi-autonomously, insulated from the pressures and constant oversight characteristic of the mainland. The U.S. Virgin Islands, comprising St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix, represent yet another version of semi-detached American life. Tourism drives much of the economy, but outside the resort areas, the pace of life is markedly slower. People know each other personally, privacy is respected, and enforcement of federal laws is often selective. The result is a culture where residents interact more as neighbors than as citizens under constant surveillance. Time flows differently here. The urgency and constant optimization demanded on the mainland dissipate, and daily life is defined by practical relationships rather than by metrics and performance. American Samoa illustrates how indigenous culture can coexist with American governance, producing a hybrid social environment. Here, communal land ownership and family authority structures remain dominant. Many federal laws apply differently, especially those concerning land and inheritance. People are free because the system is designed around collective responsibility, not individual achievement. Children grow up understanding their roles in the community before learning about national citizenship. Emotional and social structures dictate daily behavior, and freedom manifests as participation in a society that values cohesion over constant regulation. The Northern Mariana Islands, including Saipan and Tinian, further show how distance and cultural autonomy shape life. While U.S. laws technically apply, enforcement is sporadic, and local customs dictate practical day-to-day decisions. Residents maintain traditions imported from both Chamorro and Carolinian ancestors, blended with American influences. Infrastructure is limited, yet communities thrive. The sense of personal freedom comes not from lawlessness, but from the ability to live within systems that acknowledge local reality, where residents are not reduced to numbers or statistics in distant bureaucracies. Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands share common patterns with these Pacific territories. Life is slower, social cohesion is prioritized, and federal oversight is tempered by distance. In all of these places, personal relationships often supersede formal structures. people maintain reputations and obligations locally, while broader government rules act more like guidelines than strict enforcement mechanisms. The result is a kind of freedom Americans rarely consider, a freedom built from trust, autonomy, and adaptability, rather than legal guarantees alone. Infrastructure in these territories reflects the practical realities of life removed from the mainland. Roads are often narrow and winding, utilities may fluctuate, and services can be inconsistent. But these apparent deficiencies are part of what shapes local independence. Residents adapt. They develop informal systems for transportation, communication, and trade that do not rely solely on official structures. This adaptability produces a population that is resilient, resourceful, and capable of managing daily life with a degree of personal control rarely possible in the more regulated mainland environment. Economic systems in U.S. territories are also uniquely localized. Informal markets, bartering, and community-based commerce supplement formal businesses. Residents often engage in microeconomies that are invisible to federal oversight, creating flexibility and opportunity outside standardized frameworks. This economic autonomy reinforces personal freedom. People can earn, trade, and sustain themselves according to local realities rather than purely federal mandates. While wealth may be lower on average, the sense of control over one's life is higher, creating a distinct form of prosperity measured not in dollars alone, but in independence and social capital. Cultural traditions in these territories further enhance the sense of autonomy. Festivals, communal gatherings, religious rituals, and local sports leagues provide structure and entertainment without requiring external approval. These traditions connect people to their surroundings and heritage in ways that modern American cities, with their homogenized culture and digital distraction, rarely match. In these territories, culture is functional, embedded in daily life, and inseparable from freedom itself. Residents are free to express identity and maintain social cohesion without the pressures of mainstream conformity. Education and youth development reflect the hybrid nature of freedom in U.S. territories. Schools often blend American curricula with local traditions, teaching students both citizenship and cultural identity. Children learn how to navigate local social structures, respect communal authority, and participate in shared responsibilities. This dual education produces adults who are grounded in community values while fully aware of federal citizenship, creating individuals capable of self-governance and local problem-solving from a young age. Political engagement is another distinctive feature. While residents in these territories may not always vote in federal elections, local politics are intensely consequential. Participation is direct, personal, and immediate. Decisions affect neighbors and extended families, not abstract populations. This immediacy makes governance feel real and actionable, giving residents a sense of agency that can be diluted in larger mainland systems. In effect, political freedom is experienced through direct involvement rather than mediated processes. Geography itself shapes freedom. The isolation of islands and remote Pacific territories creates natural buffers against overreach. Shipping delays, limited infrastructure, and sparse populations make enforcement of national policies slower and less intrusive. Residents adapt, innovate, and cooperate in ways that preserve autonomy. This geographic separation is not merely physical. It produces mental and social space for self-determination and the cultivation of local norms. Legal frameworks exist in these territories, but they are interpreted through practical realities. Federal agencies often have limited resources, leading to local adaptation. Law enforcement may prioritize major crimes while routine regulations are flexible. This creates an environment where residents exercise judgment and maintain personal responsibility, balancing compliance with practicality. In such a context, freedom is not the absence of law, but the latitude to live in accordance with local norms while remaining a U.S. citizen. Environmental awareness plays a central role in shaping autonomy. Many territories face natural challenges, from hurricanes in the Caribbean to volcanic activity in the Pacific. Residents develop resilient strategies, from reinforced homes to community emergency plans. This proactive engagement with the environment fosters a sense of empowerment. Freedom is not just legal or social, it is existential. the ability to live and thrive despite natural threats, relying on human skill and collective effort rather than solely on government intervention. Healthcare and access to services demonstrate the interplay of freedom and responsibility. While federal support exists, local limitations require residents to take initiative for preventive care, family health, and community well-being. Clinics may be scarce and resources limited, so self-organization and mutual aid become essential. This necessity cultivates independence, reinforcing the sense that life can be managed effectively without constant oversight. In these territories, freedom is intertwined with competence and communal accountability. Transportation further illustrates autonomy. Ferries, small aircraft, and limited road networks compel residents to plan travel carefully, maintain vehicles, and manage resources. The pace of life slows, but decision-making is concentrated locally. Residents control logistics that on the mainland are automated or outsourced. This day-to-day control over mobility enhances the sense of agency, which underpins the broader experience of freedom. Food systems also reflect independence. Local agriculture, fishing, and community markets reduce reliance on large-scale distribution networks. Residents often cultivate gardens, maintain fisheries, and share produce. These practices create self-sufficiency and resilience while reinforcing social bonds. Food becomes both a practical necessity and a symbol of autonomy, reinforcing that freedom in these territories is lived through capability and community support. Social dynamics are shaped by scale. Small populations, often under 100,000, mean interactions are personal and reputation-based. Social cohesion enforces norms and accountability without the rigidity of external enforcement. People live with visibility, but that visibility comes from connection, not surveillance. Knowing neighbors intimately encourages cooperation, discourages conflict, and promotes freedoms that are socially maintained rather than legally imposed. Language is another dimension of autonomy. In Puerto Rico, Spanish dominates. In Guam and the Northern Mariana Islands, indigenous languages persist alongside English. Language choice shapes thought, social interaction, and access to information. It also shields communities from homogenizing pressures, preserving cultural autonomy, and creating spaces where residents can live according to local priorities rather than national expectations. Technology adoption illustrates selective engagement. Internet infrastructure exists, but is often slower or less pervasive. Residents adapt by prioritizing essential connectivity while avoiding the constant digital bombardment common on the mainland. Social media influence is moderated naturally, allowing attention and focus to be directed toward relationships and local concerns. Freedom, in this context, is cognitive as much as social. People are free from the attention economy that dominates continental life. Legal status is nuanced. Residents are U.S. citizens or nationals, but the territories occupy constitutional gray zones. Voting rights, federal tax obligations, and representation differ. This ambiguity creates latitude in everyday life, reducing the pressure of mainland compliance and allowing local decision-making to dominate. The resulting freedom is structural and systemic, not merely cultural or personal. Religious and spiritual life flourishes differently. Indigenous and local practices remain vibrant alongside imported faiths. Community rituals, festivals, and ceremonies are integrated into daily life, providing cohesion, rhythm, and moral frameworks independent of distant oversight. People live guided by shared values and collective memory rather than distant regulations alone. Healthcare emergencies, natural disasters, and economic shocks require local problem solving. In these territories, resilience is built into everyday living. Residents develop skills, share knowledge, and innovate solutions, cultivating personal competence alongside communal strength. These repeated exercises in adaptation reinforce freedom, showing that independence is achievable even under constraints. By observing how residents of Puerto Rico, Guam, the Virgin Islands, American Samoa, and the Northern Mariana Islands navigate daily existence, it becomes clear that freedom is not a legal guarantee alone. It is cultivated through culture, geography, and the careful balance of responsibility and autonomy.